Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy Sunday to join us. We do have an interesting program today, looking at some of the updates that have happened in medicine over the past year or so. And I've asked Dr. Lawson to join us. I hope he's here. He's actually in Los Angeles now with the American Society of Psychiatry, American Society of Psychiatry. Dr. Lamont Gibson, who's our famous pharmacist. She's not infamous. And if Dr. Dawes is available, she's in Jamaica. I think our other co-host might be traveling today. I know Dr. Walks is, and possibly the others as well. So welcome. Let's get right to it. We're going to discuss some issues. Is Dr. Lawson on, Simon?
He's not.
He is not. Okay. We'll start anyway. Please put the first slides up, please. So we want to talk about important medical information that we've reviewed that will help you with your health, with well-being, and longevity. Next slide. So there are recent breakthroughs in brain health, diagnostics and physical aging, nutrition, and preventative care. And there's an emphasis on integration of science, technology, and a healthy lifestyle. Notice we've been on this kick for almost 3 months about lifestyle and what modifications you can and should make. Let's go to the next slide. So everybody's heard about Alzheimer's disease, and it may be more than just normal aging. We know that amyloid plaque might occur some 20 years before symptoms occur. And some of the symptoms that happen, maybe you forget what you went into a room to ask your wife or your husband. You can't find your keys. And sometimes you just can't come up with the name of something you were trying to remember. And those can be early signs that make you think about memory loss, but it might be more than just I'm getting old. It might be something that could be preventative or potentially treatable. So we've talked about amyloid before, and amyloid is it's a normal protein made by the body, and it happens in such a way that it's made of these myofibrils, and these fibrils can become tangled and can cause plaque in the brain and in other places, and this can cause decreased ability to mentate, think, and make your cognitive ability much lower. Next slide. And when Dr. Lawson comes on, he told me he would be on in a few minutes. This is really the slides I had for him. So there's some drug innovations that happen. And one of the things that has come out that the people who get these new drugs and new tests are not necessarily those who are of African descent, but usually rich white men. So we want to be aware of things so that we can make sure we can take advantage of them too. So the first particular drugs are monoclonal antibodies that target beta amyloid plaques. Lecanemab and donanemab, they always make these things so they're difficult to say. But this has been approved under accelerated FDA pathways for early stage Alzheimer's. There's a trial called Clarity, and it showed that there was slowed cognitive decline. It slowed cognitive decline by 21% over 18 months. So almost 2 years, it was able to slow the decline of the mental disability. And similar results were shown in the Trailblazer trial with Alzheimer's. So there's some side effects with imaging that is done, and early diagnostic criteria has a different type of efficacy. Next slide. So there are a number of things that are emerging to show that there's a plasma uh, ratio of 2 to 40. And we'll let Dr. Lawson talk about that. So right now, we depend on getting a PET scan to diagnose these plaques, cerebrospinal fluid test, CSF. They can do a lumbar puncture on that and look and see if there are these fibrils or plaques of fibrils of amyloid in your spinal fluid. There was also a article in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association. They showed a 96% accuracy in identifying Alzheimer's pathology. And the earlier that you treat this, that you can find out about with broader screening, the more that you can potentially do to prevent this disease from taking hold of your life. Next slide. So there are other things that can help your health, such as, and there's new research from NIH showing that resistance training improves cognitive executive function in adults over 65. Now, most of us know about cardio. We run, we walk, and that's cardio. But resistance is lifting weights, stretching rubber bands, picking up things, and this helps also your executive function. That is, you making decisions, your cognitive ability. We know that aerobic exercise increases hippocampal volume. That was seen at the University of Pittsburgh in 2022. And we know that there's also a multi-component exercise reduces fall risk, improves gait. This was shown in Lancet a while back. But the best practices are 150 minutes a week of moderate activity. Both balance and flexibility routines are very helpful. Let's go to the next slide. Dr. Gibson, you help me out with this slide?
Benefits of cardiovascular and resistance exercise, how exercise supports physical and mental health across the lifespan. It's important to remember that the benefits of cardiovascular and resistance exercises span throughout the various systems of the body, the circulatory, neurological, actual structural, meaning the support system, the bones and joints that are responsible for normal body function, as well as encouraging the vascular system, the heart, and the plumbing. I'd like to refer to the heart and blood vessels as the plumbing system in the body, and it's responsible for getting oxygen from the heart, from the lungs that actually enter the body through your respiratory tract into your lungs where it's oxygenated, and then through your heart. The heart pumps the systolic and diastolic note, boom, 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 to send the oxygen to all of the exterior or extremities, your feet, your brain, your hands, throughout the whole body. That's what the plumbing or cardiovascular system does. So resistance encourages the movement of that blood throughout the entire body, nourishing both the physical structure and the neurological structure.
Thank you. Next slide. You can take this one too if you would. Dr. Gibson, go ahead.
Okay, cardiovascular exercise, physical health benefits. It enhances heart and lung function, lowers blood pressure and cholesterol, lowers blood pressure and cholesterol. Let's put a pin in that one, circle back around to it. Improves metabolic control and insulin sensitivity, reduces the risk of heart disease, stroke, and cancer. It also aids in weight loss and fat control. Let's take this whole slide and disaggregate it a minute. The heart and lungs play critical roles in that plumbing system that I referenced just a few seconds ago. That's because they control the blood pressure and, believe it or not, the management of cholesterol, excuse me, that might otherwise build up in that plumbing system. If you think about pipes in a building, they tend to get clogged sometimes, and the clog is usually in a building, that would be minerals that seep through the joints into the into the pipes and clog it up. In our bodies, that would be fat deposits that tend to be promoted by cholesterol floating around in your bloodstream. And what happens is that when the cholesterol adheres to this, it gets sticky and adheres to the sides of the blood vessels. It makes the caliber or the opening in the pipes or veins and arteries smaller. And what does that do? It's the same thing that the water that you think about when you got wet up when you were a child, the water would come out faster. And if the blood in your body moves faster through smaller calibers in your blood vessels that are clogged up with cholesterol, it's going to put undue stress on two things, your heart and your brain, resulting in possible cardiovascular bad things happening, or heart attack, or your brain, stroke. That's why it's so important to consider the value of physical exercise, cardiovascular as well as resistance. Cardiovascular, meaning walking. You don't necessarily have to run a 100-yard dash. You could just do walking and just basic resistance exercise with rubber bands if you're so inclined, or maybe weights. Not very heavy weights, but just you have to do it on a calibrated basis. In other words, don't start this without talking to your doctor or your personal trainer. But above all things, make sure that your doctor's your primary confidant when it comes to that. The aiding, sorry?
No, I was going to say something. Go ahead, finish that. Then I'll put a question to you.
Yeah, the weight control and the fat loss, that is what results in increasing the body temperature and metabolizing a lot of that excess cholesterol and fat that tends to get caught up in the blood vessels. Dr. Maxey?
Well, I was going to say that you talked so much about plumbing. It reminds me there was a physician friend of mine who had a lot of plumbing work done in his house, and the plumber presented him the bill, and the doctor said to the plumber, "Man, you make more money than me." The plumber said, "Yeah, I used to be a doctor." Yeah. So, let me know, is Dr. Lawson on yet? Simon, when you see him, let me know. I want to go back to those first few slides and let him review those. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you, Dr. Gibson, very much.
My pleasure.
So, cardiovascular exercise does have mental health benefits. It can boost your mood via endorphins and serotonin. And we know that those two items can affect your well being. It decreases your anxiety and depression, enhances memory, as well as brain plasticity. It also delays the onset of cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. It improves your sleep and stress resilience. Next slide. Let's go to the next slide. So, some of the research, there was a SMILE study that showed that aerobic exercise reduced depression comparable to antidepressants, so it can actually replace some of the drugs. The Framingham Heart Study showed that cardio is linked to longer life expectancy, and that's something we all want. In the Journal of the American Medical Association showed that aerobic activity reduced depression symptoms more than 26%. Next slide. Is Dr. Dawes on? Dr. Lisa Dawes? So this is one that Dr. Gibson talked about earlier about physical health benefits of resistance training. And it shows that it builds and preserves muscle mass. It increases your bone density and reduces fracture risk. This is especially important for postmenopausal women who lack that basis and have lower bone densities that happens. It also enhances strength, balance, and mobility. It regulates blood glucose and metabolism and supports independence in older adults as we get older and more senior. Next slide. So it improves self-esteem, and we know that it also improves self-esteem, body image. It reduces the symptoms of anxiety, increases your ability to sleep. You can go to the next slide. So the Harvard nurses study showed a 30% lower chronic disease risk. And in the Lancet, the psychiatric article showed the strength training improved depression in 33 different trials and also improved your HRV, or heart rate variability, and reduces stress markers. Next slide. Now this one shows that if you combine cardio plus resistance, that it increases your longevity and increases all-cause mortality, or reduces all-cause mortality by 20 to 40%. It promotes heart, brain, metabolic, and skeletal health as well, and helps maintain healthy weight and body composition. There are synergistic effects on cognitive function and emotional balance. So it's very important to put both cardio and resistance together. Next slide. So exercise recommendations include having 150 to 300 minutes per week of moderate or 75 to 150 minutes per week of vigorous activity. Be careful about the vigorous activity unless you've been cleared by your physician or healthcare provider. We know that resistance training should be at least twice a week for all major muscle groups. And you can do that by sitting in a chair and standing up without pushing up with your arms. You can do it with weights. You can do it with those rubber bands that you can get at most fitness centers. But it's important to add that resistance training. To also include balance, flexibility, and mobility work, especially for seniors. Next slide. So in conclusion, we want to say exercise is medicine. They say food is medicine, but so is exercise. And every domain of health benefits from it. We want to tailor programs to individual capacity, age, and goals, and encourage lifelong physical activity for health and quality of life. I believe that's the last slide, Simon. No? So let's talk about this. I'll let Dr. Gibson, you want to speak again on this one?
Sure. I did mention earlier the value of a Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diet is just as one would suggest or suspect, a diet that originated in that part of the world. Well, it's popularized by the cuisine in that part of the world, Italy and similar such places, where there's a tendency to use a lot of the omega-3s, the polyphenols, which are colorful. So you hear, especially Dr. Walks, he mentions eating the rainbow. Well, that's where you're going to see polyphenols, because they tend to color the food and make them rich and dark. The more colorful your cuisine, the healthier it is, the higher it is in antioxidants. The mind diet, I try not to use the word diet, but mind cuisine is a hybrid of DASH. Well, DASH, what is that? That's a program. It was actually named after a study that was done in an attempt to explain the benefits of a low sodium diet. That's incredibly important for people of color, for those of us on the call today, because we're from a salt-rich part. Originally, we're from a salt-rich part of the world compared to the Mediterranean diet, which is primarily in the area of Italy and what have yous. A hybrid between the Dash and Mediterranean actually it actually slows the cognitive decline. So you get the benefits of eating the rainbow along with minimizing the sodium because of the fact that we are predisposed. We as people of color from the continent are predisposed to a high salt diet at the onset, long before we got here. And in the Okinawan diet, which is high in fiber, low in calories, Okinawa is the rock. That's the Isles of Japan. And on a rock, they they concentrate in foods that are high in fiber, low in calories, and also high in proteins because they eat food from the sea or seafood. Intermittent fasting. I have to emphasize the importance or the value of intermittent fasting, something that we have embraced with abandon in my family. And it works very, very well, particularly with the balance and full disclosure, I don't practice yoga. I am being reminded regularly that I should practice yoga, but there are benefits that I know of, and I know for a fact, and I will admit, I'll be the first to confess, I could benefit as well from yoga exercises, particularly when it comes to issues of balance, maintaining balance, and that whole flexibility challenge that we have with time. And here, I love this last one, the Blue Zones, plant-based whole foods, common among the longest living populations on Earth. Did he say longest living? Yeah, the Blue Zones. As a matter of fact, there's even, I believe, a documentary called Blue Zones. I would recommend it to everybody, just while you're looking at other genres, check out Blue Zones, where they actually talk about the people that live longest. And
There's one here locally out in on the east of
Loma Linda.
Loma Linda.
Yes, sir.
And I like their diet. The only thing about their diet I don't like is they don't drink any coffee. And I'm a coffee addict. But they don't believe in coffee and a lot of things. But they're the longest lived Americans, I believe.
I'll never tell.
Okay. Next slide. You want to talk about this one, Dr.
The Pyramid study is a Mediterranean diet with olive oil lowered major cardiovascular events by 30%. Again, this is getting towards the type of cuisine that's very popular in Italy. I keep mentioning that because Italian cuisine is not only very healthy Mediterranean cuisine, but it's also very delicious. It's quite tasty and it's not very expensive at all. So you get the benefits of financial, frugality, practicality, as well as results. You get good results from that Mediterranean. Anyway, the Predimed, which is documented well in the New England Journal of Medicine, cites 30% advantage on cardiovascular improvement, which is not nothing. That's extremely beneficial, 30% increase. I must say that the majority of the so-called data that is cited in our studies, and I'm really not proud of this, those numbers were collected on people that don't necessarily look like those of us on this call. So let's just think about our proclivity to avoid those studies and think about why we tend to avoid those studies. And we won't use the T word, that study done in Alabama, but we'll just stick a pin in that one and come back around to it later. Longevity diets are often emphasize whole foods, ergo whole paycheck, that store where they sell foods that the prices are not that affordable, but the quality tends to be, I say tends to be, exceptional. Those longevity diets, they emphasize that whole foods and natural fat sources, meaning plant-based, are not ultra-processed, meaning olive oils as opposed to corn oil, he tried to say, and other highly processed oils that don't have the same burn or melting or smoke point as olive oil, which is why we minimize the amount of cooking that we actually do when we have a diet that leans toward Mediterranean. You can use lower flame and no frying to speak of.
Next slide. So lifestyle modification is backed by science. We know the poor sleep if you have, is linked to Alzheimer's risk is higher, and also cardiovascular disease if you don't get your 7 to 8 hours a night. And you want to try not to have interrupted by getting up because you have to pee every 3 minutes. You want to, and the reason for that, something that Dr. Gibson mentioned earlier, that when you're lying flat in your bed, a lot of things work better, including getting rid of your cholesterol, but your kidneys work better. You urinate better when you're lying flat. It makes your kidneys work better. So we need to make sure we can have that function all day long and all night long. There are social connections, such that lowers your dementia risk by 40% just by having a less stressful, happy life and good family interaction.
Just by having a
Important.
happy life, good family interaction.
So also stress management
So
is important.
also,
I'm getting an echo. I don't know what's happening. We know that if you lower your stress, you're going to be more healthy all along. That meditation is linked to reduced telomere shortening. One thing we learned out of the Okinawans is the telomeres in your genes or in your chromosomes are what make you live longer. So you don't want your telomeres shortened. That's very important. Smoking cessation adds 10 years of life expectancy if stopped before age 40. This is reported in the Journal of Internal Medicine produced by JAMA. And we know that also limiting alcohol intake, moderate intake is tied to better cognition, and excess is harmful. No good reason to drink alcohol. Next slide. So I'm a gadget person. So I like a lot of gadgets. I have an Apple Watch. I used to have a Fitbit. I have a program on my iPhone that tells me how to look at my heart rate variability, looks at my sleep quality and my step counts. These are things that can stimulate you to be more attentive to what you're doing. They're not necessary. I'm not trying to sell any iWatches. They don't need me to help them do that. But some of these gadgets can help you be cognizant of what's going on. Every time I come in the house, it says, take your blood pressure, and I do it. Take your pulse, and I do it. Some of those are important. Artificial intelligence and machine learning. This can predict what's happening with your hospitalizations, optimize your drug treatment regimens for those of who take something like that. So some of these gadgets do help. And also telehealth does increase access to care, but we do know that under our current administration, telemedicine is going down. They don't want to pay for it, especially for those of us who need it. And we also know that there are genetic tests that can help you find out what's going on, what your risk factors are in your body and your family. Next slide. So there's some future trends. There's senolytics, and we look at how to remove aging cells from the body. And this is something that's being tried out right now. We know that there's research being done with the microbiome. We know that the gut and the brain are connected. You know, the serotonin type drugs work that way, and your gut actually does control your brain, interestingly enough. We know that epigenetics, looking at DNA and its methylation, this tells you about your lifespan versus your biological age versus your chronological age, which may be out of sync. And we know that we want ultimately to have precision medicine and use genomics to help us tailor preventative therapies and not just have one size equals all. Next slide. So let's speak about this. And I think Dr. Gibson alerted to some of this. You want to take this side, Doctor?
Sure. Excuse me. Earlier, when I mentioned that it's important to watch what oils we use in our choices for foods. Prefer oils high in monounsaturated fats, olive oil, avocado oil, macadamia oil. I confess I didn't know the names of these various low smoke, low temperature oils, but thank goodness it falls right in place here. And it's very important that we stick with those as opposed to maybe perhaps some of the fats that some of us may recall growing up and seeing in a little metal can on the stove, which rightfully was labeled grease.
Mhm.
We limit the processed vegetable oils, which is a corn oil and that kind of thing, and stick with the high omega-6 unless balanced. Use saturated fats like butter in moderation. I can't recall when I've had butter. I think I must have been a teenager. So that was a very, very long time ago. Again, as I mentioned earlier, avoid deep frying and reheating oil. So there goes that can. Um, and there goes that man. Consider cooking methods, steaming, baking, sauteing. As I said before, if you minimize the heat attached to or used in the preparation of your food tends to be more closer to the state that it was intended for you to ingest it.
Next slide. Thank you, Doctor.
Mhm.
So, in conclusion, we want to suggest multimodal approach as being the most effective. Some people need drugs, some people need lifestyle, some people need tech, and some people need mindset, or combine them all. Your medication. We want to empower individuals to take proactive steps, and collaborate between physicians and communities is essential for lasting impact. Next slide. I believe that's the last one.
May I?
Go right ahead.
You know, I believe I don't remember who, but somebody, as I used to say on Wednesday night, decided to testify, and apparently it's had checked out blue zones, and I'm very happy to hear that. It's quite accessible. That program, it's packaged nicely and it's very interesting, and you get news you can use. That's circling back to tailoring your food as medicine, and I'm a huge proponent of that. Along with, in fact, integrating your omega-6 and balancing omega-6 because it's really, really a serious balancing act. I think there was mention of the microbiome earlier. Uh, Take a look at the importance of that serious tight network between the gut and the brain, and you'll be amazed at just how much we can learn.
Let's open our mic. Thank you very much, Dr. Gibson, for helping me out today. I appreciate you backing me up. Uh, let's open the mics and have some comments and questions that we can see if we can answer. Did Dr. Lawson ever come on? He's at a big meeting downtown. He's got a lecture today, so maybe he had to do that. But let's open the mics. Is Dr. Dawes available?
She might be multitasking.
Yeah, she lives next to the beach anyway. Dr. Sherrod, you here? Everybody being quiet today. No questions, no comments, no thoughts. I'm going to call on a few people then. Dr. Alice, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you?
I'm good. How's it down there with you?
Oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I've only enjoyed part of the show, but my husband and I were listening together, and we were just finishing up our dinner, so it was timely about fried foods.
Yeah. Why don't you send me and Dr. Gibson a plate by fax?
We have nothing fried. Everything is baked.
Anything new in the world of anesthesia?
Well, we've changed the protocol a little bit with the GLP-1s and perioperative precautions. We had at one time, we were canceling patients who were scheduled for general anesthesia for a couple of reasons.
Explain
One
that
was-
just a little so everybody doesn't know what GLP-1 is.
Well,
It's the Ozempic and
yes.
weight loss medication.
Without going into detail, it's the glucagon-like protein antagonist. So it is for a number of things for patients who are obese, diabetic, and also with cardiac issues. And so these patients are on it for a number of reasons, but they also cause delayed in gastric emptying. So for anesthesiologists, we're concerned about aspiration on induction, where we get ready to induce anesthesia. So there's some precautions that people need to take. And at one time, because the drugs are new to market, we didn't know whether or not someone would be at risk for what would be the factors that made someone at risk for aspiration pneumonia. So we've recently revised that. It's several things we can do now, but I enjoy talking about how we can make our patients better optimized for surgery and give them the best chance of having little complications after surgery.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was great.
No problem. Take care.
All right, very good. Any other thoughts? I saw the name of our co-host, Dr. Neighbor Stevens, you're here?
I am here and I am embarrassed to confess that I got my time zones confused.
Wow, that's because you have 5 mansions in 5 different states.
So I'm thinking I'm 15 minutes early.
Well, we talked about nutrition, we talked about Alzheimer's disease, we talked about exercise of 2 types of cardiovascular and also of resistance, and we talked about some of the various types of oils, whether it's monosaturated, whether it's omega-3s or omega-6s. So I'd love your comments on any item that you'd like to.
Well, while I was bumping around and getting set up and everything, I saw the news bulletin about the diagnosis of aggressive prostate cancer in former President Joe Biden. And I am obviously not privy to his medical records, but at the very least, I want everyone to note that this is a man that had a thorough physical exam every year, and it's already metastasized to the bone, they report. So I just want to take the occasion to remind our audience, we've had several excellent presentations on prostate cancer. Take it seriously.
That's a very important announcement that somebody with that good of access to healthcare, and many of us have much less, and so we have to be on it. If he can get it, we're double likely to get it. And I don't think he had a family history of that, to my knowledge, either, did he?
I don't know.
Miss Taylor, how are you?
I'm
Yeah.
fine. Good afternoon. How's everyone?
Any comments or questions?
Oh, I found the information excellent and extremely informative, as always. Um, with all of the Black Health Trust meetings. I particularly thought that it was important to emphasize one's diet, how that can be instrumental uh, with the aging process, uh, in aging as healthily as possible. I don't have any particular questions right now, but everything was excellent.
Thank you.
I will say one thing. I know you called on me before, and yes, I was multitasking. I was coming out of another meeting, which surprisingly was talking about in the Caribbean. We have one of the few times in history where we will have a lot more older people than younger people. So, or we're not having as many children, but our people are living longer and not definitely healthier. We did touch a little bit about Alzheimer's and the aging, because I think people aren't exercising as much. So when I was growing up in the Caribbean, all the older people ran up and down, and as they didn't do exercise the way you guys think about it, which actually does happen in the blue regions in the world, but everybody was busy doing things every day which required exercise. So most of the older people walked a lot of places. They walked to their church a few times a week. They did have get-togethers. They walked to go get the men walked to go get their Dominoes. Now everybody drives, so we have the fast food. It's interesting when you talk about the oils. You didn't mention the coconut oil, which we use a lot here, especially the cold pressed. I think recently they have been trying to push the avocado oil, which is very easy to make, actually. And Jamaica does have a lot of avocados. I think we need to go back to some of the old days of what we did. I think the meditation, the yoga, but a lot of walking up and down the hills made you keep your balance. I mean, mom died at almost 100. And she took no medicines. When she was in her 70s, she had medicines for high blood pressure. But as she aged and was less busy, she was no longer hypertensive, which we found quite interesting. So, and she lived on quite healthily, walking up and down and doing everything as she aged. Didn't do exercise the way we did, but she did plant some of her stuff and get everything done. I think it's a thing that we have to actually make an effort to do and to be each other's keepers. So in other words, we have to be friends to each other, not visit our relatives when their funeral or when they're almost dead, which I find a lot of people do. You see everybody at people's funerals instead of visiting our older people when they're alive. And I do think the more time we spend with each other and realize when people are getting into trouble, the healthier we all will be.
Yeah, those family reunions are really very important to have them other than at somebody's funeral. So I remember last year I visited Dr. Dawes in Jamaica at my family reunion. So we enjoyed that very much. That added 10 years to my life, Dr. Dawes.
Our pleasure. I said you guys are invited back. There's a program we're trying to start up in Jamaica. We're talking about it. We're seeing a lot of older people who live alone, and we're trying to figure out ways to match them with younger people, like children, having them visit some of the schools, or helping out in the evenings when the parents can't come home, because we think it helps both sets of people. When the grandchildren grow up, we find, or they move away, we find the older people are getting more depressed and lonely. I don't know about in the States, but we're seeing that in Jamaica, because we have a lot more older people now at home by themselves. And one of the parts of the meeting is we don't have enough caregivers anymore to take care of them.
I think that's happening here as well. Is Dr. Sherrod on?
Oh, yeah, this is Dr. Sherrod, Dr. Maxey. I had just gotten on when you called, and I got a little bit of Dr. Gibson's talk on the oils. Want to commend him on that because I think oils are very important. I didn't hear the part that you did on Alzheimer's, but I wanted to add this. I ran across a TED's talk by a pediatrician whose husband was her accountant. She was in private practice, and he began to develop Alzheimer's. And they were able to reverse his Alzheimer's with coconut oil. And I know Dr. Gibson mentioned the oils, and I just want to re-emphasize how important it is to keep your body oiled. It's like your body runs like a car. The cells need the oil to do their work. And this lady actually, I revisited that TED Talk because I thought it was really very important. My mother passed away of Alzheimer's, but she gave him 24 milligrams a day of MCT oil. And he was able to come out of it and go back to work as her accountant for her private practice. So I just wanted to throw that in. I think it's important that we do some oil every day.
I can comment on that. That's actually, we dose coconut oil for Alzheimer's in Jamaica as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, so we do that. We also use, though, along with it, I don't come on this and talk about it, but some of the cannabis oil along with that. And I've had a minister actually be able to go back to giving sermons sometimes after being on that for about 6 months.
Excellent, excellent. So talk about just briefly the difference in cannabis oil, CBDs, and tetrahydrocannabinol, Dr. Dawes, real quick.
Well, in order for it to work, I mean, people, they talk about CBDs, which lessens the effect, lessens the use of THC, which is the one that makes you see, well, gives you the delusions, makes you high, which is what Jamaica is known for, because most of our cannabis here has a high amount of THC. So you can get fairly high. When you take that out of it, cannabis has probably over 300 active compounds. Or last I heard, it may even have more now. But you need, for the CBDs to really work, you need a certain amount of THC. I don't remember the exact now, how much THC you're allowed to have in it to consider it just CBD, but you need a certain amount of it. But for when we treat certain things like Alzheimer's, like pain, we actually use more CBD than THC in terms of the plants that we use. And it does actually help in terms of the brain. You know, we use that for pain, and that's been used for a long time.
Well, thank you so much. I want to call on just a couple more people at the top of the hour. Dr. Brooks, Carl Brooks, you there? Ms. Drina Brooks?
Hello there, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I'm great today.
Any questions or comments?
This program is powerful. I'm taking notes like I was in high school. It's been excellent. Great comments from the various doctors and everything. This is very helpful in the diets, the exercise, and all the things. The aging process is so interesting. 70 years of age, which I used to thought wasn't that big a deal, is a big deal. It seems like all my friends and associates hit that age of 70 start hitting major medicine needs and major medical needs. And so, is that your norm, Dr. Maxey, and people at the age of 70 hitting a whole lot of medical milestones and medical problems?
I think the Bible says you're promised 7. What's that number, Dr. Neighbor Stephen?
10, three
Huh?
score and 10.
60. Now, how old is that then? That's 70.
70.
Okay. So we have confirmation on that. I appreciate you. Glad you're doing well in Florida.
Doing very well, working with my grandkids and my son and daughter. It's working. Being down here is just relaxing and spending more time with young people, watching them participate well in school, doing well academically and educationally.
Okay. And then the last person I'm going to call on, unless somebody has something to say, from the doctor that sends me maple syrup all the time. Dr. Steiner, how are you up in New Hampshire or Vermont? New Hampshire, right?
Let's see, up in New Hampshire, thank you and good afternoon to everyone. I thought Dr. Lisa from Jamaica brought up a good point about activity, exercise. I think both mentally and physically, as you age, you better stay very active. I think that the activity, we know all the benefits we can measure in someone's blood and also for longevity, but also mentally, I think it keeps people far more astute than the ones who have a sedentary lifestyle. So I would put activity and physical activity at the top of my list, and then I would put diet as well. And then the last would be, supplements and medications. And we touched upon hypertension, and I think often we overtreat hypertension. I think there's a lot of folks that can be reset with hypertensive medicines, have a change in lifestyle and diet, and gradually come off them for a period of time or maybe forever. So this was a great talk to kind of raise our awareness for all these things. And I think tomorrow we start the day more active and with better choices and consider some of the medications that we're taking. So thanks again for raising our awareness and knowledge, Dr. Maxey. Always
you.
good to be here Sunday.
Thank you so much. And we're going to close our program, but I'd like to have closing comments from our volunteer co-hosts, Dr. Gibson, then Dr. Neighbor Stevens, and myself. Dr. Gibson?
Hi, I really appreciate the opportunity to mention a very serious commitment that I have to the health and wellness, particularly of our elders, because it is indeed a very serious time when we reach that milestone that Brother Brooks was talking about, and even before then, and we can start doing some things about the length of the telomeres, which is something I'd love to hear more about, and the role that the length of those telomeres play, not only in here locally in Loma Linda and all the rest of the blue zones all over the world, but we need to just listen to the stories that we can hear, the wealth of wisdom that we want to keep and treasure. That's the key. I think one of the very potent keys to longevity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gibson. Appreciate your help. Dr. Barbara Davis Stevens with the 5 mansions.
Well, again, I apologize for being late, and therefore I don't know if any time was devoted to this today, but if we're going to be talking about healthy aging, you cannot leave out sleep. And So that would be my last comment, that along with everything else that is very valid, we have to make sure we get sleep. And one of the things that all of these things have in common, I heard a little bit of it said, routinely do regular exercise, routinely do healthy eating. Well, routine itself is very helpful. So those would be my last two comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barbara Davis-Stevens. And as my final comment for today, I'd like to offer blessings to the former president. Hope his aggressive cancer can be treated. I wish everybody here the best of their health and continued exercise and good eating. And thank you very much, Simon, for getting this topic out for us and helping us technically. Have a great
Dr.
day.
Maxey,
Yes.
Dr. Maxey, just before you go off, I wonder, I didn't hear the whole talk on aging and longevity, but did anybody mention the role of the community in having younger people? Dr. Davis mentioned it in Jamaica. I think the natural cycle of life with children being in the house with elderly people and having the community concept with young people around older people has a lot to do with longevity. I don't know the research on that, but it just makes sense because you actually we're just frequency, all of us. So we get energy from being, the older people get energy from being around younger people. Plus they continue to learn new things, which forms new neurons. We now know that we can form new neurons by keeping the brain active. So that's a very important part of aging and saving your brain, is learning new things, doing things differently, like changing the hand that you open the door with. I have a book on brain aerobics, and it kind of emphasized doing things differently to keep your neurons alive. Thank you very much.
Excellent, very much. Now I know why you like to be around me. I'm so young.
That's it, Dr. Max. I've been knowing you a long time.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Dr.
Bye-bye.
Bye.